Rippaverse stonks continue to go up. Let me just refresh this real quick before we go into this video because it's actually tied into it. But check this out. Over 11,000 total purchasers, closing in on 1.5 million. You know, we'd get the short box going. We are closing in on 20,000 total books as well. Amazing. And you know, I say that just to show you all this. We are looking at something here. It's bound to get in comics. They covered this. James Gunn appeared on a podcast of sorts, and he talked about the state of the comic book industry, which is interesting. And this is what he said. He said that, you know, again, bound to get in comics, says, Gunn then commented on the state of comic books, and this is what he said. I started out, I wanted to write comic books when I was younger. If I was writing comic books today, I'd probably be unhappy because so few people are reading comic books. And he's not necessarily, all right, let me say this. People are reading comics. They're just not, if you meant comic book in a traditional American sense, yes. Fewer people are reading comics. If you mean comic books in just the actual art, if you will, people are. They're just reading manga more than they're reading American comic books. So there's some truth to that, obviously. No matter what angle you take on that, there's truth to it because, yeah, there's fewer people reading books, but it's not because the drive or the demand is not there. And the Rippaverse is an example of it. What Hollywood doesn't seem to understand, I'm sorry if you guys hear me making there's noise in the background. Obviously, I'm in a warehouse, but what they don't seem to understand and they can't figure out is how to get enthusiasm. They don't know how to get people stoked on a comic book. And some of that a lot of it has to do with the bad content that's being put out. But hey, I've talked about the mountains of issues that plague the comic book industry. And, you know, not going to talk too much about that right now, but you get it. Considering all that, combination of all that, well, people aren't as interested in it. That's not to say they aren't interested in comic books, because yes, they are. Again, the Rippaverse is a prime example of that. They absolutely are. Great Chuck Dixon, we talked about this on our channel, and he spoke about this as well, comparatively speaking. When looking at the number of pages, right, they're not pushing these numbers. They're not pushing these numbers that the Rippaverse is pushing. They're not pushing the numbers of ISOM 1 or ISOM 2. They're not pushing those numbers that you look at here when you talk about bigger books. This is a 112-page book. Floppy, that's one thing. But something like this, which goes to show just the level of enthusiasm that this company has. And I'm not the only one, of course. There's some other people, but they're not coming from the big dogs because they believe it seems like more quantity over like the quality. And yeah, they're putting stuff out. That's for sure. Are they making money on it? Probably not, but they're tied to mega corporations, so they get to do that. So they got to figure this out. And, you know, everybody knows this. And they might not want to admit it because it would force them to have to admit that their ideological enemies are correct. And when you look at Comics Broke Me hashtag, that's kind of a lot of them admitting the issues that surround this industry, certainly internally. But the content problem, they don't want to actually admit because then, again, they'd have to admit that we were right. And who wants to do that? So if you care about the industry, you look at these successes such as ISOM 2, ISOM 1, and you see what those guys are doing and what the companies are doing in which they're building, generating that enthusiasm that is just not present anymore in books, not to the level that it had been when we were all growing up reading this stuff. But that's not what they do. They hate those that will cover us. Certainly do it in a hit piece form or people that are in our corner of the internet see a lot of success. It's all hatred because they think they own the industry and they don't actually care about the industry. And to be fair, you know, when you look at who they market to or who they tend to cater to, I don't want to say market to, it's more of who that I guess they pick up bad information from. And the bad information is from people that aren't really readers. They may pirate it to get a clip or something, but other than that, they're not really readers. They're not going to be at the comic book shop every Wednesday actually sitting down, looking forward to books and reading them, and obviously putting money in some way, shape, or form in the hands of the companies as there's a demand for it. And that's just not happening as much as it was back in the gap. So to the whole being scared to be a comic book writer, I have no fear in that. And I know Saska's don't and Chuck Dixon doesn't. And the people that will continue to work with us don't right now because, well, we're giving people what it is they want and what they want and the enthusiasm is there. And that's what they are missing. They'll probably never get it, though. It is what it is.
If you enjoyed this video and want to support other content, please become a member at ericdjuly.com. This is my own unique platform that replaced my Patreon. Our Ultra Max, which is our highest tier, gets free shipping domestically even with Rippaverse orders, and are able to redeem the Creators Edition copy of ISOM #1. You can move up and down tiers or cancel at any time. Also visit Rippaverse.com. This is my comic book company that launched a $3.7 million campaign. We appreciate your support.